Good afternoon, marketers. Welcome to the inaugural Marketing Mob Talks. My name is Annelle Barnett, and I'm the founder and CEO of Marketing Mob. We're a marketing, recruiting, and staffing firm that connects marketing leaders with qualified, hand-selected marketing talents. I am also the host of today's talks. As promised, I want to give you a sales-free educational event, so let's get started. We have a few housekeeping items and then introductions. Marketing Mob Talks will take place on the second Tuesday of every month at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And as you know by now, we are going to feature 3 15-minute snippets of educational marketing content on each series. We will record all sessions, so if you're unable to attend one of the months, simply register and we'll send you the recording after the fact. We really want to respect your time today and keep each presentation to only 15 minutes. So we're not going to open it up for Q&A. However, each of the presenters has included their contact information at the end of their presentations, so you can reach out to them directly. You can also send me an email at abarnett@marketing-mob.com, and I'll either funnel your question to the presenter or I'll answer the question myself. So now on to the presentations. Our first presenter is Moira Vetter. She's the founder and CEO of Moto Agency. I consider Moira to be a marketing superstar. I'm a 20+ year marketer myself, and every time I hear her speak, I learn something new and significant. Today, her talk is on being strategic in a month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter world. At this point, I'll turn the controls over to Moira. I hope you enjoyed today's session of Marketing Mob Talks.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us this afternoon. So I thought that the topic of being strategic in a month-to-month, quarter-to-quarter world was very relevant. Being in the agency world, we're seeing this time pressure and this immediacy really taking root and often negatively impacting companies' ability to be strategic. So I want to talk about what does that mean to be strategic first and foremost. So in our mind, when we're working with someone who is trying to be strategic from a marketing standpoint, we regard being forward-looking. So, you know, it's great to have data, it's great to have statistics and a lot of trend lines, but is what you're doing just based on history, or is it forward-looking? Is it responsive? Are the programs you're putting together, will you be able to respond to the market with them? Are they flexible or adaptable? That could be to market, to product, to different things. Are they repeatable and exponential? And I loved this image because it sort of speaks to this notion. Often we'll have clients that want to do an engagement, and if you devise a marketing program that is so fixed or rigid as a square would be in this image, you know, you often can't pivot. You can't use insight that you've gleaned in the process and sort of adjust. Whereas if you're working with a program that's round in nature, you know, you can pivot, you can move, it can pick up steam, it can take on a life of its own, and it can create exponential value of its own. So that's what we think of when we think of strategic marketing. So the best thing to do when you're in this sort of, you know, crazy reality of this month-to-month world is breaking long-term goals into short-term projects. So often we'll have people, you know, engage the firm that have a short-term project that an executive has asked them to take on. And if instead you can sort of understand what was the nexus, what was behind the need for this short-term project, and sort of boil that up into a broader, longer objective that you're trying to accomplish, you know, you can be much more strategic. And we always think about the, you know, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? If you know that you're building towards an elephant, if you can take the time to speak to your executives or your team or your customers and understand what an ideal end state would be that's fully strategic, then you can actually break up smaller projects and sort of cull them together into a picture of a broader, bigger vision. But if you don't know what you're building towards, you're just reacting and gorging yourself. And so Often we will have engagements with clients, again, where there may be some projects that are responsive in nature, but if you can understand a bigger long-term goal, you can hone your activities towards a longer-term stretch goal. And so I apologize, I know this is painful on the eyes, but this is not unlike the kinds of work plans that we would use with clients. And what's important, again, is this notion of planning for the long term despite the immediate pressure. And so you'll see in the top here this phase one area, right? Give them a Band-Aid, but don't stop there. Very often, when you're in the marketing realm, and let's say there is a pressure that's on you, there's a short-term sales objective. This quarter's numbers must be higher, or we're going to a particular show and we must have sales activity up in this period. People will craft an engagement or a set of activities around this very limited place in the world, this sort of phase one activity. And what we try to always understand is, what is that? What's the lowest common denominator in the Band-Aid, but not stop there. So we'll give you your Band-Aid and we will work on that short-term project, but we will only do that in the context of also simultaneous with that working on the longer-term plan. So in this case, you can agree to short-term gains and KPIs, and you can create with minimal effort a short-term objective, but all the while you are also doing a short or long-term, or short and long-term plan that ideally includes some customer research to inform it and has a long-term plan about it, a multi-quarter plan. And then ideally the next phase would be creating a flexible system. So I talked about that before with the ball, something that can pivot, something that can move with you. So rather than just creating a few things or a few programs, you create a system of things that you can sort of tweak or move differently to allow you to respond to different audience triggers, different degrees of content, perhaps different places that someone might be in the sales funnel, that requires a different amount of information, or would enable you to test different variables. And then the in-market launch and test. Launching and testing in the market, I think that testing is always this great idea. Everybody says they want to do it. Some people do A/B testing with paid search, but still testing is something that is often it would be nice to have, but doesn't actually get implemented in the real world, right? We only have time to get to market with A. We don't have time to get to market with an A/B split and to learn from it. So we really encourage our clients to try to find the variable that they can test in market and then ultimately refine, tweak, and retest that. And the last note I have on here is stop starting from scratch, build on what you know, because starting over costs time and money. If you don't have time in the first place, definitely, construct a program that enables you to, think and respond and shift from your core effort. And then, over time, you can make it smarter, you can make it better, you can enhance. And often, in terms of the money aspect of things, you can reduce waste in the effort. Often we'll have clients that, move forward. My slide jumped. That will move forward and have to sort of throw out a whole effort. And if you can, again, build those building blocks to be flexible and malleable, you will not have to wholesale throw out an effort based on a new variable. And again, in keeping with the time that we have today, this is, I think, my last slide. It's don't stop what you're doing unless you've given it enough time to work. And this is really critical. We have a lot of executives that will pull the plug on something, particularly if they have a short-term pressure, and maybe it's something, pressure coming down from the executive suite. And, we must have X deliverable, X response, X conversion, or we're going to pull the plug on a particular program. And it's important to know what mediums can react and in what time before you start pulling the plug. So One of the things that we like to look at is how quickly can you expect different media to respond. And so, for example, here we've got social media. You can know in hours or days, usually in hours, if something that you're doing in the social media arena is really working effectively or working against you. In terms of paid search and SEO, that could be days to weeks. You need a little bit of a trend line, but you can see a trend coming in kind of quickly and you can tweak it. Digital ads and direct, that could take longer. It depends on how many people you're, contacting, how many places you're placing it. But especially if you're in a business that is really working on the long term and the long-term positioning of the business, where you're doing thought leadership and brand positioning, you need to give those things time to work. And that doesn't mean there isn't a social media component of a thought leadership program that you can get some early read on whether you're getting traction on. But being a thought leader is not something that happens in 24 hours. And, changing your position as the leader in a segment isn't something that's going to happen in the first couple weeks that you launch a campaign. It takes time to kind of, take hold. And so, it's important to kind of reinforce with executives what they can expect different mediums to do, because I think that often there's a reaction of, we will give all things X period of time to do their job, instead of these types of activities should be given X amount of time, and these need to be given time to really sink in with people. And in the same way these are happening on a sort of a different time spectrum, there's going to be entirely different measures that you use to read your effectiveness and the kind of traction that you're getting. So obviously, whether your brand has been repositioned, the kinds of things that you'll do to assess something like that, to see if you're strategically moving your business where it needs to be, is going to be something very different than, how many followers you have on a Facebook page, or if you're getting enough engagement with, some blog posts or something. So, in the same way you need to be realistic about what you can expect of the medium, you need to be very thoughtful about what the measures are that you're going to be using. And I definitely think, and this is, I think, Anel, you mentioned you've been in your industry for 20 years now. I've been in the market close to 30 years. I've never met anyone that didn't want a long-term result in a short-term window. And I think that to the extent that we can all be cognizant of that and try to deliver the short-term need with the long-term focus, you really can position yourself in a win-win spot. If you can understand that you need to get the quickest wins possible, but with the longest term goals in mind, or with the, with having an understanding of what it may take to get the company over the long haul where it's going, you really can position yourself well. So again, condition executives to understand what they can expect and when. And that's everything I have to say, at least today in 15 minutes, on being strategic in a month-to-month, minute-to-minute world.
Thanks so much, Moira. That was a great talk. Lots of good information came out of that. Again, if you have any questions, Moira's contact information is here on the screen, or you can email me at abarnett@marketing-mob.com. So our next presenter is Patrick Blanchard. He's the founder of Full View Marketing. I've known Patrick for several years, and he's a master at utilizing digital tools to drive results. His talk today is on the digital marketing ecosystem.
Anel, thank you so much for that generous introduction. It's interesting because the digital space is, as many of you may know, is pretty busy. There's a lot of technology, there are a lot of tools, there are a lot of processes, and it can be overwhelming. The reality is most of the clients that, reach out to an agency like ours are, in that SMB market, and they're trying to get quick results. They're bound by a budget. They have indicators of what they want success to look like, but sometimes they miss the fundamental beginning of all of it, which is, what's the purpose of the campaign and what are you trying to achieve? It may be lead generation from digital channels such as paid and SEO, display, retargeting, marketing automation, email, etc. It may be increased sales from e-commerce. They may want to see lifts in social, or they may want to see lifts over here. But the reality is there are only three things you can do with digital marketing within its own ecosystem. Only three things. You can go find individuals who have never engaged with your brand, aren't aware of your brand. You can try to coerce them onto your site to do what you want them to do. If you're a B2B technology company, it may be something as simple as a form fill out. So you can begin your nurturing process. If you're, a company selling blue widgets through a Shopify experience, then it may be actually product sales that you're looking for. The other thing that I would argue that you can do is go find people that have engaged with you historically and try to convince them to engage again. And that can be done through an array of things, retargeting, additional search campaigns targeting demographics that have historically reached out to you, social media, marketing automation, nurturing. And then the last thing you can do is find people that have bought from you before and coerce them to buy again. So there are only three things. So if you simplify it like that and you go, okay, what is my goal? What am I trying to achieve? And then what are the three things that I can fundamentally do to increase sales? It makes it a much more snackable experience to put together a campaign. Now, I'm looking at it from more of a direct response perspective here when I outline those three options. But at the end of the day, those are the three things you can do. So, there are tons of tool options. Through any kind of campaign launch, there are project management tools. Now, while I'm not going to say that there are, well, there are 1,000 of them, but, even if it's something as simple as Basecamp or Trello or Asana, affordable options for project management. There are two primary analytics tools I recommend. I think that if you position a campaign with appropriate tagging so that you can understand from a data analytics perspective how they're performing in real time as well as over the course of time. If Google Analytics is your central hub, usually anyone in this industry can kind of take that information and run with it. It's a universal tool. We've all used it. In some cases, we've had e-commerce clients, for instance, who use tools like Kissmetrics as well, because you may have, a direct purchase option on your site, but you may have an extension factored in where there's a payment plan. Google Analytics is not going to track that in all cases. So it gives you the option to have a secondary hub for data where it's easy to migrate in and you can kind of make intelligent optimization decisions from a campaign perspective. And here again, without breaking the bank. Paid media is like infinite in options. There's so many DSPs and ad networks and exchanges, and it can be a little bit intimidating. But if you're looking to grow a campaign or grow business through a campaign and you want to go where people are, you have to remember that people use the search engine Google to solve problems. They go to Google with questions, and we trust the answers somehow. Google is also a for-profit corporation, so they sell us the opportunity as advertisers to be in a good position to answer and solve those problems that the consumers have. There are other options here, though. I mean, if you look at Google AdWords alone, I mean, you've got search ads, display network, retargeting opportunities, and there's so many ways to target strictly through that tool alone. So it's a great place to start. In time, Bing ads, different types of display networks that are out there. For retargeting, our agency has kind of fallen in love with AdRoll over the last couple of years, strictly because it's easy to use. They have a very interesting algorithm that samples all of us somehow, and then populates a high intent category. So if someone looks like your customer, they drive the same kind of car as your customer, they have the same purchasing habits as your customer, as your target customer, and that is identified through AdRoll's algorithm, it will in turn provide the opportunity for an increased bid for that ad slot. So from an analytics and paid media perspective, that's a good place to start. And, you know, if we move along here, email and marketing automation, you know, the digital marketing ecosystem is no longer siloed. It's no longer, let's have an SEO guy do SEO stuff, on-site and on-site optimization and off-site citation building and local directory building and link building, all that stuff. It's no longer, we're going to have one guy doing that. We're going to have one guy managing paid media. We're going to have one guy doing creative asset development. We're going to have one guy do it. You know, now it's got to be this holistic campaign where everything works together harmoniously. When you factor in email with paid and SEO, you have the opportunity to go directly to your customer base or your lead base. So for instance, if you're like a B2B SMB type company and you don't have a ton of content built, or maybe it's not in the budget for your agency to develop a ton of content, but you do want to keep your customers aware of what's going on with you, offers, product launches, promotions. You know, MailChimp and Constant Contact are really good, easy to use, affordable solutions. If you're looking more for that marketing automation experience, now we could go down the rabbit hole of 15 different tools to serve this purpose, but for the interest of time, and I'll add that we're cramming a lot in here, so just roll with me, okay? SharpSpring and HubSpot are two great solutions that take that social engagement information, take that paid engagement information, the email campaign engagement information, and correlate it all into one spot for you. You can do lead scoring, who is most likely to convert. It helps with forecasting. It helps with what content they're going to get next. So when you start automating content for e-commerce, an example is cart abandonment email campaigns, or you start automating that message based on intent or based on how the end user engaged with you online. It gets really smart, and on-site conversion rates increase. Campaign costs can sometimes decrease. It makes the whole experience quite efficient, actually. So email and marketing automation are pretty important. If you're a B2C e-commerce company, you know, we've partnered with, you know, Springbot and Bronto. Those two solutions, obviously you can use HubSpot for that purpose as well. We really like Springbot and Bronto for several reasons. One, a lot of our clients and other businesses that we're aware of are switching from very complex, bulky e-commerce solutions like Magento or custom PHP builds over to Shopify, frankly. We've got several accounts on Shopify. And so when you're integrating your marketing automation tool with Shopify, it's far easier. It's all done via extension. And so that makes life better. So then you're able to correlate sales information, customer history information with social engagement information, email. For instance, Springbot, local Atlanta company. We love them. They have a great interface, easy to use. Clients like the reporting. But, you know, I can manage data from Google Analytics in one place, the same place where I manage my ad roll retargeting campaigns, which is in the same place that I manage my Amazon store. So if the e-commerce company sells on Amazon, you know, as well as email campaigns and triggered marketing automation campaigns all in one place. And that just makes everyone's life better. So the agency, the client, the end user, the whole experience becomes better when you can automate all of that in one location. So Springbot's one of our favorites. We like Bronto as well. So whether you're, you know, B2B, SMB, or a small consumer services type company, you know, email and marketing automation work the same way they do for e-commerce. So then if you look at social, I heard someone say one time, if, you know, content is king, and I kind of went, okay, I get it from an SEO perspective and from just a general brand conversation perspective. But if you're not creating content that makes the end user's life better, you're better off just not making content, not creating content. And that goes for text, video, any kind of creative. the reality is in social media channels like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest. Some consumer brands do really well on Pinterest. It's all visual brands. But the reality is your content has to be cutting edge, disruptive, targeted, offer centric, and you might want to consider creating a sense of urgency through the campaigns. Video and image without a lot of text tend to perform incredibly well, much better than just standard text. So if you're going to create social content, make sure you know who you're sharing it to. Create lookalike audiences. Understand your buyer persona, even if it's something as simple as generating a literary persona for the sake of just visualizing who your customer is. All of that is very important to do. So the summary here, and kind of where the rubber meets the road for me, is you should never boil the ocean. Don't try to take a campaign from launch to infinity in 30 days. Don't try to do it. Test. Pick little things, little tiny places you can move the needle and try that first. Don't overcomplicate. Go back to that first slide. What's your objective with the campaign? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? Spend marketing dollars. Don't spend marketing dollars without return. Now, it may be that you don't know what a lead is worth on your site. Like you don't know what a form fill out is worth. You're not e-commerce. You don't have a ton of historical data. It's okay. You can build into that. You can understand over time what the lifetime value of a customer is. That will help you understand what your average order size is, for instance. And that will help you determine what that lead is worth. And then you can build out goals in your campaign that help you intelligently run your campaign, spend your marketing dollars wisely, and in turn, use marketing and advertising digitally by using the tools we've kind of talked about and some of the processes we've talked about to make your campaign more efficiently. Now, the things you do want to do, develop the purpose for your campaign. You have to have a vision. You have to have an offer. You have to have a reason for your consumer, your target consumer, to want to engage with you. Simplify your tools. Don't use 25 tools to run a campaign if you don't have to. Use one as your source of analytics for reporting. Use a couple of ad networks. Use your social channels. Because really it comes down to, we're not marketing as marketers to technology. We're marketing to people. And we have to remember that. So it doesn't matter what tools you have in the tool belt necessarily at all times. What matters is, are you positioning that right message to that right person with that right offer or solution at the right time on the right device? I mean, it sounds a little complicated, but it can be simplified. And you start with your technology stack. And then you have to streamline your message or offer. You have to have a clear direction with what you're trying to achieve, and you have to have a clear offer or a clear, amazing solution to a problem. And if you have those things in line, you're probably going to run a pretty efficient, pretty amazing campaign. Thank you so much for Anel for allowing me to participate in this. I've really enjoyed it so far, and I look forward to hanging out for the rest of it.
Thanks, Patrick. That was a great presentation. Again, if you'd like to ask Patrick some questions, you can email him at the contact information here, or you can send it to me, abarnett@marketing-mob.com, and I'll get those questions to him. So our final presenter is Stephanie Ropolo, and she is a partner at Bright Blue. Stephanie has over 25 years of experience helping Fortune 500 companies build their employer brand. Her talk today is on, is your employer brand helping you attract and retain the best talent?
Good afternoon. Hello, marketing friends. Thank you for joining today. Really excited to be here talking to you from California, even though Bright Blue is headquartered in Atlanta. And today we want to talk about a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, and that is your employer brand helping or hurting you attract and retain the best talent? This is something that I think is a challenge for a lot of organizations that are trying to figure out how to recruit millennials that are very different than the generations before them, as well as keeping them on board a little longer than their habitual 2 years. So exciting topics. So today we're going to talk about why is it important? What makes this important? Why should we care? And for some of you out there, you may not actually have a good idea or understanding of what an employer brand is. So we're going to take a quick look at that. And then we're going to have some tips on what you can do to know if your employer brand is working. And then 2 things that you can do to improve it today. So first up, why is this important? Why do we care about employer brands? And I would say the main reason is that it impacts every single area of your organization. But I'm just going to start with 2. So first, HR. Human resources invests millions of dollars every year in attracting the right talent and then keeping that talent engaged and on board. So if there is a strong internal message, the value proposition, the why factor of why that employee should come and work for you, HR really needs to know what that is. They need to define that. So a lot of you out there that may have dialed in for this may come from the corporate branding world. So you have a really good idea of that process. The process is very similar in coming up with that key messaging and developing that value proposition. And then, of course, all of the essential assets that go to activate the brand. Companies need the same process to activate their internal voice and to create that value proposition. And then if you go over to the sales side, which is the part of the organization that's responsible for generating revenue, they need it just as badly. They need to be able to go out to their customers and be able to explain with confidence, why should you care? Why should you buy my product? Why should you buy my service? And it's really from developing this strong internal employer brand that those sales reps are able to do that. And of course, the financial impact of that is significant. So those are just a few little quick nuggets to answer, why do we care? So for some of you out there that may be thinking, wow, I get that, but what exactly is an internal brand? That I sort of go back and forth between internal brand and employer brand. And I thought it would be fun to just look at 3 organizations that I think have really strong internal brands. So all of you are familiar with Uber, Google, and Starbucks. So let's think about it. Why do people want to work there? So a couple things come to mind. One is Uber, flexibility. We all know that people are working for Uber that are going to law school at night, that are single moms, that have 2 other jobs. They're trying to create a startup business, and they need a flexible work schedule where they can make really good money. Google, very different scenario, but still incredibly strong. So strong, actually, that they made a movie out of it. But Hollywood aside, you're going to go work for Google because they have incredible collaboration, that they work in teams, that they are global, that they are impacting the way that the entire world does business. So that is significant. Starbucks, you are going to go work there despite the fact that you love coffee, but because you're going to get benefits. You're going to be able to actually work a part-time job and have benefits. And you're going to also be working for an organization that has an incredible social impact and is about reducing the carbon footprint than more than any other organization that I'm aware of. So there are some key things here that will resonate with people, and that is essentially the internal brand. It's the why would you come and work for me question and answer. That's what we're trying to get to with the process of that internal brand. So I thought it would be kind of fun to tell a story, quick little story about a friend of mine named Ty. Ty is an SEO expert, search engine optimization, and he and I worked together for a couple of years, and he was always getting recruited. people were always coming after him because he was very talented, well educated, but he also had a specialty that was rare. And we were always trying to keep Ty on board. You know, it was, what do we need to do to make sure he doesn't leave us? And one day he came and he said, you know, I got an offer from MailChimp. And I thought, MailChimp, gosh, I didn't even know they were headquartered in Atlanta. And I didn't know a lot about them, but they rose up on my radar because of this offer he got. And we were able to keep him a little bit longer, but within a year they came back and they made him an offer he couldn't refuse. And so when he came to tell me about the offer, it was impressive. And at the same time, he also got offers from several other people. And when everyone heard, the organization that I was at as well heard that it was MailChimp, they all said, well, because you're going there, there's nothing we can do. We can't even counter. And I thought, wow, that is a lot of power. What is it about this organization that everyone is folding in their cards and saying, you know what, gig is up, you're going to have to go. So I started paying more attention to MailChimp, and you're going to see a little bit more as this presentation unfolds about what some of those key things are. But they were around compensation. They were around health benefits as one category. But knowing that not every company can offer, for example, 100% paid health care, there was a lot of other things that MailChimp was about that were really cool and resonated with Ty. So we'll get to those. So how do you know your brand is working? You know, you may say, well, I really love working here, and I know that I'm always out talking to my friends about how great my company is. But if you're a marketer and you're wondering what the beat on the street is, the first place that I recommend you go is Glassdoor. This is hands down the #1 place where prospective employees will go to look under the hood of your organization to see what other employees are saying. They can look up salaries, they can, and it's all real conversations from people that have worked inside the organization. So if we go back to MailChimp and you look them up, this is what I would say an internal brand that's working. And it's 4.6 stars out of 5. 97% would recommend it to a friend. And the very first thing you see when you go into Glassdoor and search MailChimp is, "Dear MailChimp, please never change." So on and so on. So funny enough, I decided to go and look at the organization that Ty was being recruited from. Like, I'm curious, what did Glassdoor say about them? And I think this is an example of something that's not working. Only 2.8 stars, only 43% would recommend. But the very first thing you see is a quote from an employee that says, "Run. Run, they will slander your name." So not to, you don't know who this organization is, but the truth is that you have access to this. You can see what employees are saying about you, and you have an opportunity to go in and re-campaign and restructure and get more positive influence. And plus, you might actually read a lot of it and get some insights on some things that you could change further inside your organization. So the next thing that I would say is ask. I'm always amazed when people talk about their company and then they say, there's really some problems here, but I don't even know who to go to create the change. So we all take those typical HR surveys that I know a lot of employees feel just goes into a black abyss. But if you go a little bit deeper and conduct focus groups, and I'm talking about you marketers, not HR, but you as the marketers of your company, go in and sit down with different demographic teams, millennial teams, Gen Y, Gen X, and get them talking about the brand, but also about the internal culture and how they feel about working for you. So one great example I have is we were hired to do this for the second largest distributor of wine and spirits in the United States. They were having a really hard time with their internal culture. And you would think, gosh, how is that possible when I have, we sell alcohol for a living? So we sat down with a group, and one of the gals said, you know what, if we're not doing it right, then something's wrong. And that became our tagline. We flipped it around. If it's fun, we're doing it right. And we started to change the sense of joy and the fun factor of working for this company. And it really made a difference. And that was just simply by asking. So 2 things that you can do today. First is develop a well-defined purpose. Are you communicating that purpose through different vehicles? You see it different for many organizations, but it can manifest in your core values, a company credo, your employee value proposition, which turns into your elevator pitch. These are all areas that you can communicate this. And I love MailChimp. If we go back to MailChimp, I love that this is their value proposition, that they are a team of misfits, that they believe in doing things differently for the underdog, and they are all about making not only their community better, but weirder and more human. So when I read this, I think, wow, they're doing something different, and it's really cool, and it's a little edgy, and it's just kind of hip and fun. Who wouldn't want to work for a company that says that this is what they're all about? So the second thing I would say is make sure you are speaking to millennials. 75% of the workforce, as you all already know, will be millennials by the year 2020. So are you creating an organization that is a place that they can come and invest in and make a difference? And are you telling that story through video? Not online in just written format, not through a brochure, but through video, because that is how they digest information the best. And are you active socially, not only with your carbon footprint, but online? So just look at that and analyze, are you telling your story to the millennial generation that is effective? So key takeaways: audit Glassdoor today. Make sure you ask employees for their input, because you just may find your best tagline yet. Develop a purpose and communicate it clearly, and make sure you are speaking to millennials loudly. And with all of that, you will hopefully create ambassadors, just like MailChimp has so beautifully done with this is just a group of them in a parade, but hundreds of employees showing up for a cause, for a good cause, to be a part of a community and be collective and be branded. So hopefully you enjoyed that, and hopefully it'll make a difference, and you'll get to take some of that back to your organization and start recruiting and retaining the best talent you can get. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. And Anel, thank you so much for having me. And if you need or have any questions or would like additional information, here's my contact information. Thank you.
All right. At this point, I'd like to thank each of our 3 presenters and thank all of you for attending the Marketing Mob Talks. I hope the talks were helpful and informative, and that you have some immediate takeaways. Just to let you know, we've already scheduled the next group of thought leaders to present the content in November. That will take place on Tuesday, November 14th at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. On this panel will be Amy Walker-Bars. She's the Director of Brand Strategy for Teradata. Ann Marsden, who is the founder and principal of Marsden Marketing. And Brad Stevens, who is the CEO and founder of Entreholic. You can actually go ahead and register for that webinar at goo.gl/B, lowercase a, the number 5, capital U, lowercase r, lowercase a. It is obviously case sensitive, so be sure to type it in as it appears here. We'll also be emailing you more information on the upcoming topics as that comes available. We really appreciate your time and attention today and look forward to hosting you in the future. This concludes today's Marketing Mob Talks. Thanks so much.